This is the Grids and Modularity Part 1 assignment tutorial for the ART159 Graphic Design Layout course. In the module for the Grids and Modularity Part 1 assignment, you'll find the assignment sheet, which gives you all the details about the assignment and what the objectives, as well as some steps to get started and the final deliverables in regards to this as well. Essentially, you're going to be working with different modules within a grid and coming up with 4 distinct compositions that are different and showcase this grid structure in a different way, utilizing these different modules within these different rows and columns of the space. There is the tutorial video, which you are watching now, as well as previous examples for you to look at to get some ideas of how students have treated this in the past. For this assignment, you're going to be creating 4 different compositions, all in a single PDF. I would suggest using 2 of those compositions to create some sort of imagery, potentially. You can see that this is a sort of orange on a blue background. This is actually in reference to a cat that is sitting on a grass with a blue sky. And then you have more abstract styles like this as well, that is not necessarily trying to be any pictorial image, but is really just playing with the color and the different modules of the actual grid structure. So within the 4 compositions, I would suggest using 2 of those compositions as more abstract and 2 as more pictorial. One fun thing that you can try to do for this assignment is to potentially choose some of your favorite album covers and use that for a reference to try to use for your pictorial images, since they're typically the same square format as this as well. Over on the last tab, you'll find the template for this assignment. Make sure that you are using the Part 1 InDesign template. And if we download that, we should be able to open this up in InDesign once it has been downloaded. I will click on that to go ahead and open up this file in InDesign here. And when we open up this file, we will see that I'm going to come up here to my workspace and reset my Essentials workspace so we're all looking at the same workspace. You'll see that we have the Properties tab that is open with 4 different pages that is on this template here. The first thing that you're going to want to do, just like we did in the past assignment, is go in and change your name here, which again is going to be attached to the A master page. And if you remember, that can be found up in the Pages panel over here. You'll see the 4 working pages that you're going to create your 4 different compositions on. And then up at the very top, you'll see the A master page. If I double click on the thumbnail, the white page over here on the right of the A master page, it will open up this master page for me to edit. And I can use my type tool, the large T over here on the left-hand side, to simply click into this and highlight this whole section here to change to my first and last name. Once you have made that change, you can go back to your selection tool, and then you can click back into your first working page, and the change there should be made to all of the pages that are, again, using this A master page that is tied to the top there. So that is the first step that you're going to want to do. Next, you're going to want to go ahead and come back to your Properties tab over here and go back to the Selection tool. Now you'll notice that if I come over here to my page 1, I can go in and actually select into these individual squares. There is actually 3 different squares, 3 different columns and 3 different rows to each one of these modules. So there's essentially 9 squares within 9 other squares within this page. The idea behind this is you are going to go in and change the colors to these squares one by one to reflect the grid or modular structure that you're playing with within that particular composition. So for example, if I was trying to go with some sort of pictorial image, you might be referencing some sort of image, and to change the color of this top left square, I could either come down here to the bottom of my tool, and you'll notice that there are 2 squares. The square in the front is my fill, and the square in the back is my stroke. The stroke is essentially the outline of that shape. Now, I don't want any stroke on this particular shape. I just want a fill, and that's what's in front. So the back should always be, in every single one of these that you select, should always have that red slash through it and no stroke. But with this first one selected, and again, if I click out of that, you'll see that nothing is selected. As soon as I go to my selection tool and click on the top left, it's letting me know that the fill for this is black over here. And I can actually double click into that fill thumbnail, and it's going to go ahead and bring up this RGB color space view for me. Now within this color space view, I can actually move around the cursor over here within the space, and then I can also move around this slider to get different ranges of values within that space, or ranges of hues, I should say, within that space as well. Now, I actually typically, this is the RGB color space. I actually typically like the HSB color space myself, and you can toggle in between those by either clicking on the H up here at the top, or on the R will bring you back to that RGB. I'm going to click back on my H here. The reason I like this one is because it typically has your rainbow slider over here, a full spectrum of colors, from red to violets to greens to yellows back to red. And then over here it has your value of how saturated you want that. 100% saturated, or very light, or a darker value of that actual color. So you can kind of get your color over here within the slider, and then get the actual range of that color, whether you want it to be a lighter, saturated, or darker value of that color as well. I'm just going to go ahead and go with this purple for right now and click OK. Now as soon as I click OK, you'll notice that it's changed the color to that particular square. And now I can actually come over to my additional square. Now you might have noticed that the appearance is also available over here in the Properties tab, and I can actually change the color from the fill over here with this new square selected by clicking into that. This will open up my swatches here, which I already have preloaded, or you can come into your color chooser over here, or your actual value range over here as well. The problem with this is that it typically is recognizing this as only black, and unless you select a color first, then go into that value, it's going to just select that particular color. So I find it easier to go ahead and use the fill over here in the color picker to be able to really choose from that range that I like, and be able to choose within the actual color over here on the right as well. Now you're going to select each one of these squares and start to change the color to those. Now it doesn't mean that every single square has to be different. There might be times where you want to match the particular color to that square. There's also ways to do that by selecting on this square over here to the right. I can come over to the eyedropper tool, which is going to be this little eyedropper. Clicking and holding on that with my mouse will bring up the eyedropper tool behind. It should be the one without the little ruler, not the color theme tool, but the eyedropper itself. And with this square selected, I can actually come over to another square that I have, potentially this purple, click into that, and it will automatically make that square the same color as the previous one that I have selected with the eyedropper. You can also come in and select multiple squares at the same time. If I wanted to select, let's say, this entire row here of squares, I could either, with my black arrow tool, click and drag through all three of those, or I could click on one at a time and hold my Shift key on my keyboard to select all three of those as well. And I would just go through the same process here. Selecting any of those colors within the space will allow me to change those all at the same time. Now you're going to go through this entire composition and again change the color of each one of those squares. Once you are pleased with your first composition, you will then go into page 2, continue the process throughout the 4 different compositions. Again, I recommend you choosing 2 that are pictorial and 2 that are potentially more abstract. Once you have completed the assignment, as always, you're going to go up to File and Save As. Save this as a working file, meaning, oops, let's leave that. I'm going to erase template here. And save this as an InDesign file, InDesign document, so that you can open it up and edit it, whether you're finished with it or whether you are still working on it. This way you can always come back to that. I'd hit save, designate where I wanted to save that. Then you can come up to File, Adobe PDF Presets, and go to smallest file size to save this out as a PDF. Here is where you will use the naming convention needed for this assignment. Hit save, and it's going to bring up this Export Adobe PDF dialog box. Again, we are using the Adobe PDF preset of smallest file size, so you do not need to make any changes in this panel. You can simply come down here to Export and click the Export button. Once you have exported that as a PDF, you're going to come back into Canvas. Close this out. You will come into the final page of this module. Have our weekly wrap up once you have completed all of the week's tasks. And here you will upload the assignment once the assignment is unlocked and ready to be submitted. You will see a Start Assignment button. You will click on that and select the PDF file that you wish to upload. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Good luck.